prediction session. My name is Jovan Kurbalija, and every year during the first week of January, I try to do this forecasting exercise, which is both risky and exciting. Future is always tolerant to us, and we can always argue that we just guessed what will be happening. Well, we are 1 year older, as it's getting more difficult to me, not to our younger colleagues that much. And hopefully we are wiser about tech, digital, and other developments. Let me just give you a context for today's exercise. We have been doing it for last 10 years, and we do it in the following way. We do predictions now, verbal prediction, followed by the text, more detailed analysis of the prediction. We follow the development of this forecast of predictions throughout the year, and at the end of the year, we have summary what's happened in the meantime. And I will share with you in a minute slide, which explains this whole overall process. Today, I will give you the outline, what I think will happen this year, with some arguments why I think so, not just taking things out of the thin air. And then we will open the floor for discussion, for your suggestion, your comments, contradicting points, and everything else. My colleague Susonia will follow the discussion. I will also follow the chat, and then she will bring your comments, and we will try to discuss them and to sharpen our thinking about quite a challenging year ahead of us. Let me just share the screen. I will just usually do this question if you can see the screen. Yes, I guess.
Yes.
Anyone? Good. Thank you, Arvid. This prediction will have two aspects. Well, not 2024, 2025, but we will basically try to see what will happen on the day when the President Trump takes over US presidency. It is a really important moment because of the overall importance of the United States as a home of the internet, as a home for the most powerful companies currently. Therefore, what is happening in the US is basically going to impact the rest of the world. Then we will have that part and focus on that, and also focus on the rest of the year and what we can expect ahead of us. Here is the format of the prediction, which you will see how it goes. The prediction 2025 will be ready tomorrow, and you have for each of 12 topics prediction and reflection what's happened in the meantime, always comparing to what, in this case in 2024, I did in January. What was my thinking in January, and how the things developed, and how in this case 2024 ended. Mina will be sharing, my colleague Mina will be sharing the links to all documents that I will be mentioning. Let's see now quickly about this prediction for 20th of January. First point, why I referred in my text that Trump attack more of the same, but with a twist. We are obviously overwhelmed by this historical development from different angles, and we always tend to not to see wider historical context. And if we consult the history, we can see that US tech policy has not changed substantively since, let's say, 1875 and the ITU St. Petersburg Conference, where United States for the first time actively participated in the ITU deliberation. Then we have exactly 150 years. The only exception from the continuing US policy, which argued for the private-led approach to technological governance and innovation, or business-led approach, the only exception was Titanic moment. Titanic moment, where basically a United States pushed governance-led regulation of the 1912, just a few months after the Titanic catastrophe. Those radio regulations are still in force, and this is the only exception in 150 years long history of the US participation in the, for example, ITU, but I would say generally global tech governance, from the rule that tech governance, telecommunication governance, internet governance, call it whatever prefix you put, should be business driven and government should have a limited role. This is not going to change with the Trump presidency. On the contrary, coming from the business driven approach, he is going to continue this approach. I would say to push it even further than the previous administration had when it comes to the international organization. The second point why we'll have more of the same is that current regime works quite well for the US tech industry, which is obviously priority for the President Trump. And why to fix something which is not broken for them? Obviously, the things have changed and there will be other interests where other countries will be asking for more regulation, and as we'll be seeing in a few points. Therefore, this is continuity. History, something which works well for the US tech industry. What are those twists and possible changes? Let's go through them quickly. One is content regulation. You know that Meta agreed to follow Musk's approach to very limited regulation to dismantle fact-checking network in the United States. At the beginning, we'll see how it will be extended to the rest of the world. And it was expected because it is something which is a burden for them. And they have to pay the fact checkers. And Mark Zuckerberg was very happy to announce, I think 2 days ago, that he is dismantling it and going to the community notice. That's going to be a quite important development because the problem of the impact of the social media platforms will stay. Community notices are not as bad, and we can discuss that, but they won't solve all problems of the reliability of the information of the social media platforms as public spaces. One possibility, a slight possibility, although I'm not completely optimistic that it will happen, is to revisit Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act from the 1996, which is basically founding article of the Silicon Valley and tech platforms, which argues that, in brief, companies and platforms are not liable legally for the content that they host. There is a bipartisan agreement that something has to be done with this Section 230, both by Democrats and Republicans for different reasons. And we will see if Trump is going to push that and revisit that, make possibly tech platforms more legally liable for the content with all complex consequences. This is one thing that we should observe. But the second problem is much more serious. The question of content governance has been picking up momentum globally. In countries worldwide, governments are nervous about misuse of social media platforms for whatever reason, when it comes to elections, internal conflicts, justified, non-justified. And here again, we forget something. When we discuss a reaction of the European Union, we forget that the first digital and internet governance case was the case in the German court on the CompuServe. Few colleagues who are of my age can recall the CompuServe, which was the space for exchanges even before internet, and that it moved to the internet, but it was very, very early days in 90s. Germany has very strict content governance policies, and they reacted to that. Therefore, I would be very careful to frame this discussion as Musk versus EU or US versus EU or Germany and these things. There are deeper roots and reasons why some countries are extremely nervous about misuse of the platforms. Therefore, that will be going to be very tough exchange, especially if companies start dismantling aggressively fact-checking networks beyond the United States. Third point that we should focus on is the question of the TikTok. Obviously, most of you are aware of what Trump, during his first presidency, started the case on TikTok. Biden and the Congress followed. They introduced the law, which is basically requesting TikTok, interestingly enough, to either pass to the US owner or to be banned by 19th of January, just one day before inauguration of President Trump. We will follow at Diplo and Digital Watch closely what's going to happen that day. But you see how history is basically condensating in a short time spans. But this is important for another reason, for our focus on digital governance. If there is this push for domestication of TikTok, other countries can follow the same approach with Instagram, with YouTube and other services, requesting domestication of these services legally, financially, practically under their jurisdiction. Therefore, we should watch that carefully. When it comes to the artificial intelligence, and my bet is that the first bunch, there will be many executive orders on 20th of January. My bet that one of the first executive order will be order or scrapping Biden executive order on artificial intelligence. Now, again, we can argue that it is just the new president disagreeing with previous president, but we have to be careful here for one reason. And here I will just go back to the revision of AI, to the other documents. This is evolution of the risks in artificial intelligence. You can still record that in 2023 in May, we were overwhelmed with the letter signed by leading scientists that basically AI will destroy us. This is this extinction risk. These three circles here are extinction risk, exclusion risk, and existing risks. We then followed that the bubble of extinction risk started shrinking in January 2024. One of the key proponents of extinction risk, Sam Altman, in Davos was much more calmer about the risk that AI will destroy us. And existing risks for jobs, for education, for media, starting increasing. We also follow this development at the end of the year, and we have currently main focus on existing risk, much smaller focus on extinction risk and exclusion risk. Exclusion risk means basically monopolizing information and knowledge in the hands of few companies and excluding communities worldwide. We do this analysis by following the media with our AI system, with a media mentioning of different risks, and also analysis of the policy documents. Therefore, that is going to be an important development to follow, and Trump's new executive order will most likely focus on three priorities like his previous executive order on AI, innovation, skilling, and global competitiveness. Now, why this is in sync with the rest of the world? If you follow the line of Bletchley Conference, which started in UK, moved to Korea, and now is coming in Paris in February, you will see exactly that there is this change in the focus. Bletchley Conference was mainly on extinction risk. It shrinked a bit in Korea, and the Paris, if you go through the program of the Paris AI Summit, it will be on the question of the AI Commons development, and including open source. The coverage of our initial agenda from the Bletchley is shrinking. In this context, Trump's executive order will basically codify what's going on outside in the world. I will reflect later on in the broader 2040 developments, although I'm already trying to make parallels here. Then we have focus on China, on geostrategy and cybersecurity. There is nothing new here. The only question that we have to monitor carefully is what space third players will have in this increasingly dual or bipolar digital geopolitics. What will be the role of EU? What will be the role of Brazil, India, Indonesia, Africa, and other actors? Then one issue which is completely underestimated in the current analysis of Trump presidency is the question of digital taxes. As you know, in June this year, OECD failed to agree about the Pillar 1. Pillar 1 is in most simplistic way the redistribution of taxes according to the number of internet users. For example, Facebook is based in Ireland. It pays taxes over there. Pillar 1 requested that, for example, Facebook has to pay taxes also in Germany, in France, in UK, in Indonesia, in India, according to the complex formula, but in its basis, it's basically number of internet users. OECD failed to agree about it. Now, many countries, including Germany, France, UK, and Canada, basically paused their digital taxation, internal digital taxation, waiting for the outcome of OECD negotiation, which failed. Therefore, Trump presidency has to deal with that, of increasing number of digital taxes which will be introduced of the countries worldwide. His first reaction on the French introduction of digital tax on the Apple during his presidency was very aggressive, and he, I think, even did direct intervention with President Macron of trying basically to dismantle that taxes. That's an interesting issue to follow, especially in the relation between EU and United States. Cryptocurrencies new down, as you know, they call Trump crypto president, and there will be 3 proposed executive orders that we are waiting if they are going to be introduced. Creation of a crypto stockpile, some sort of strategic reserves, ensuring access of crypto industry to banking service, which was very difficult during the Biden administration, and the establishment on some sort of a crypto council. My bet is that they will go probably with only one executive order, which is on crypto council, because the other 2 involve some even macro financial interventions into the US economic system. Therefore, in brief, quite a bit of continuity with some twists and changes. I would advise that we carefully follow what will happen with taxation, because that is something that can shake many bilateral relations between the United States and other countries, including European Union. Now, let me just pause here before I zoom out on 2024 and see what we can expect beyond 20th of January, with obvious impact of 20th of January, and see what is the situation with your question and comments. And maybe I will go quickly. Hello, sir. Hello, Nick. Hello, Mokhtar. Hello, Steph, Viona. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. That's definitely, thanks, Steph, Sita, read Jovan's blog. Thank you, Mina, that many questions. Dustin, thank you, Jovan and Diplo. This is super. Thank you for many thank yous. And once more, all the best in the 2025. Now, since Sonia, is there any other question before I take a sip of water and move into the rest of the developments ahead of us?
Hi, no, at the moment we don't have any new questions. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Good. Let's go back to the other developments. Therefore, what you will be getting is the list of those prediction 2025. Some of you may got the video where I argue that 2024 brought us grounding of AI. After the hype phase, AI is becoming much more controllable. That will continue in 2025 with a few following the main developments. One is the risk of the bubble bust or bubble explosion, and it was hinted by the International Bank of International Settlements, which is the key, let's say, banking coordination system based in Basel. And the reason is the following. There is a huge discrepancy between market capitalization of AI-related project, investment in AI companies on one side, and basically business viability of these companies making money. Therefore, it is becoming macroeconomic risks because of the scale of investment. Now, this discussion was a bit economic, abstract. I follow carefully because you can see this anyone who is deeply in AI, and I'm since 1992 in this field, I realized that the hype was enormous. And obviously that next to the hype is basically risk of the bubble and bubble burst with economic consequences of the whole economy and society. The reason why it became more realistic is the release of the DeepSeek. DeepSeek is the platform from Hangzhou, from China, which basically develop AI model, which is now beating, I think, of all of the 10 parameters, except one, mathematical, all other models, including everything produced by OpenAI. Now, that's probably nothing new because, as you know, somebody said that you have new language model developed in China and the rest of the world almost daily. And but this model is interesting for two reasons. One is that the fund for the training of the model was $5 million US, comparing for this billions of dollars invested in OpenAI and other companies. This is the first point. Second point, it was trained on the previous generation of NVIDIA cards, 800, currently is 1000, which is still possible to import in China. I use it intensively. I read the evaluation. I use it intensively during holidays, and it's a very powerful AI model. Why is this important for the previous discussion of the hype and the potential bubble burst? There will be a question, is such investment, huge investment in NVIDIA and hardware, any more justifiable? And how to ensure reasonable business successes with much less funding and much less investment. Therefore, I would say that is for me at least, the critical development which marked the end of the last year. We discussed these three bubbles that will be shaping the space, and I will also draw your attention to another visualization of AI governance. AI can be approached on basically 4 levels: hardware, NVIDIA, microprocessors, electrical energy, all of these things that you're hearing that, I don't know, AI takes more time, more energy than Denmark, Netherlands, how are titles in the newspaper these days. The second level is extremely interesting, data and knowledge. You can notice that I added knowledge. In all lingo, currently people speak only about data. For those of you who participated in the World Summit on Information Society, now 20 years ago, you can recall that knowledge was very much present together with information. And what we are discussing today is knowledge. AI creates knowledge. AI simulates knowledge, insights, reflections, human reflections. Yes, it is based on data, but not only data. If AI process my blog post or my text, it's my knowledge. Therefore, there will be very interesting shift with enormous legal and policy aspects by extending data to knowledge. It's already happening with New York Times court case, in WIPO, in other places. In one of the most interesting development, Tennessee law of protecting voices and impersonation of the singers. It's obviously not surprising. Tennessee is the home of Nashville. Therefore, the AI discussion is much more grounded in protecting our knowledge, protecting our data. This is the second layer, which I think there will be a lot of dynamism. Third layer is algorithms, flops, power of the machines, power of processing. I'm not, and this is now personal opinion, I'm not very convinced that this is the good way to invest governance energy. And DeepSeek is the best case. They are not as powerful as OpenAI, but they have fantastic inference model getting from the AI system. And focusing on complexity of algorithm, for me, is not a good way to govern AI. I can substantiate that. I know this is very controversial view because there is a big industry around checking algorithms, AI safety, and other things. The top is application and uses of AI. Now, another bias here. I'm coming from internet governance community, and internet is one of the best historical examples of the way how when you regulate technology on the right level and in the right way, you get really almost miraculous developments. What does it mean? You regulate uses, and you are very light in using regulating standards like TCP/IP, like domain names, and this. There are many controversies in this. Therefore, I always argue that when we try to regulate something, we start from the uses. Again, it is the old principles as old as humanity, as old as Hammurabi's law. Those who own activity, whether it is AI activity or local shop or whatever, should be responsible for the gains and for the risks. Therefore, we have to get a bit to simplicity of AI discussion. Therefore, this pyramid is going to be quite important in the coming months in 2025 with, in my view, more and more thinking issues moving on data and knowledge layer and application on uses layer. Fast forward, geopolitics. This is the chart of the number of large language models at the end of the last year, with basically US leading, China following, and other countries having few large language model development. As we discussed with the introduction about prediction for 20th of January, basically you will have development between China and the US on different levels, on the level of AI, on the level of submarine cables, on the level of data, on the content. And you will have attempt of other countries, European Union, African continent, Middle East, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, trying to find the third way, trying to negotiate and engage with both actors in not necessarily symmetrical, but maybe asymmetrical way, and define the third way of developing AI, content, access to submarine cables, satellite technologies, and other aspects of the geopolitics. Then we go to the governance. Governance is what we'll be doing with Global Digital Compact, I'm sure, and I believe to your question, there will be a lot of questions, and the major question of synchronization between Global Digital Compact and World Summit on Information Society follow-up. I will be guided by your questions, but that's going to be on the high on agenda of many people involved in the traditional internet, digital AI governance. I'm very skeptical about interchangeable use of prefixes, but let's call it governance. One issue where, and I will be guided by your questions on that, one issue that I would be very, very careful is that we try to create shorter, impactful document. Here I did a survey of the main legal and policy documents throughout the history, including Code of Hammurabi, Bill of Rights, Magna Carta, Habeas Corpus Act, and others. And you can see that they were relatively short and to the point. I think our documents are becoming too long for the coverage of the issues. Then we come to diplomacy. Diplomacy did relatively well in 2024. Diplomats negotiated Cybercrime Convention, Pact of the Future, and GDPR. We'll see later on open-ended working group. Now, we can go into discussion how good outcome is it least common denominator, but diplomacy continued moving in very geopolitically divided world and agreeing on some steps on digital governance. Security. The major points were definitely UN Cybercrime Convention, an open-ended working group, advancement on cybersecurity ahead of 2025, and this is important to keep in mind, two events. Cybercrime Convention official inauguration in Hanoi. It will be called Hanoi Convention. And it is also signaling a growing importance of Vietnam in the digital policy. I call it digital bamboo diplomacy. Therefore, just put it on the radar growing relevance of Vietnam, which is also hosting more and more of the semiconductor industry, which is moving outside China because of the sanctions and export control. And the second point will be a conclusion of the open-ended working group plan and introducing some cybersecurity mechanism for the after 2025. There are different views, different positions, but some sort of partnership framework is going to emerge during most likely February session, at least start being negotiating. On the question of human rights, we'll have basically few aspects. We'll have a Council of Europe Framework Convention on AI, which is gaining a new relevance given the shift from AI safety. Therefore, suddenly this Council of Europe interplay between AI and human rights is gaining a lot of relevance. It's important to put on your radar that Switzerland is going to chair the president of UN Human Rights Council, and there will be an interesting interplay between digital AI and human rights. I'll just move quickly to the economy. In the digital trade, we don't know what's going to happen with the e-commerce negotiation. You know that United States withdrawn from the negotiation. Countries advanced in June with some sort of vague agreement about this new e-commerce negotiation. I've been trying to, I'm based in Geneva, to ask what will happen, and frankly speaking, even people who are deep into the process were giving me contradicting views. There will be some sort of closure because it would be major failure for WTO and the promoters, especially I would say few countries were leading, if there is no outcome after 5 years of negotiations. Most likely outcome will be watered down. In addition to initial India and South Africa, who were, and most of African countries who were reluctant about this negotiation, you have now Turkey, Brazil, Indonesia raising their voices and concern about it. Therefore, its negotiation is, to put it mildly, into the complex phase here at WTO. We discussed already digital taxation, growing importance of the trade agreements, bilateral regional agreements in the time ahead, antitrust cases all over the world, in particular increase of the antitrust cases in AI, probably slowing down of antitrust cases in the United States because of the Trump's administration. Still, towards the future of Google, will Google remain the same company? And that's basically the one of the main battles. Obviously, digital currencies, cryptocurrency in the US, and digital currencies all over the world. Let me just pause here and see what are the comments, questions that we are getting here. Mina, Sue, Sonia, thank you, Jovan, thank you, Mark Cavell, very interesting survey, thank you, Mark, great to see you. Bernard, could you talk about the link between AI and capitalism, knowing that OpenAI model now scores 88 in implicated for human workforce? Bernard, yes, this is this discussion about impact of AI on jobs, on education, on information, health sector, immediate impact. Now, so far, AI has not been replacing jobs. And there is even optimistic view by employees, not by employers. Employers are more skeptical about the impact of AI on society. It is going to come, and our society is not prepared for it. It's not starting with diplomacy, where AI is going to automate quite a few tasks. Therefore, the question is, to what extent we are going to basically, how we are going to conduct this AI transformation. For me, it is a critical issue for all societies worldwide, communities, United Nations, diplomacies, name it and have it. And we are not yet there. Those of you who were following my previous prediction, I was very concerned about us discussing what may happen in 40 years' time with AI, when this extinction risk was very high, and forgetting that something may happen in the next few years. Therefore, that would be my answer, but Bernhard, I'm going to provide more detailed analysis and references in the follow-up summary. Irena, I'm sorry. What are your thoughts on the normalization regulation of dual use of AI and emerging technology, use of adoption of commercial drones for military contractor risk association with Meta AI glasses? Do you anticipate regional difference in regulation, lack thereof, between different regions? Irena, you packed quite a few things. My general approach is to regulate uses. If you can go back to the top of the pyramid, yes, drones can be used to deliver services, but they can be used for military purposes. For military purposes, we have the Hague Conventions, we have Geneva Convention on Humanitarian Protection. Use of AI, use of drones is important. Now, one can argue that we should regulate algorithms. I'm very skeptical about it. But if military forces of Ruritania or Ruristan use drones equipped by AI, again, Ruristan in the conflict, they should be responsible according to the Hague and Geneva Conventions and human rights conventions. Now, one can argue that it's simply to say than to implement. That's true. But how far we are with implementation of pre-AI rules? The same applies to the glasses. The same applies to the other access. Personally, I'm not very happy that what Google decided not to do 7 or 8 years ago to produce glasses. They had glasses. That's very simple technology. It's now becoming commodity. It's going to be the major problem for society. But that's basically my personal view. But I would say focus on uses, focus on that, and we will bring some clarity. Valis Cheng, Happy New Year, dear team. 2 questions. What would be the implication of digital governance in Trump's successful acquired Canada? I hope I won't annoy anyone with this answer, but when it comes to digital cooperation, I don't think there will be any, or digital governance, any changes. Canadian and US views are very aligned when it comes to ITU, to digital governance, human rights. Obviously, it's a broader issue. It's a geopolitical issue of statehood and other things that is open. Second question. Any possible treaty on AI governance to prevent the readiness use such as hate speech, information protection with indigenous knowledge, or probability of using AI in military conflict? Okay, Wallace, here is one exercise that I do with my students when they raise the hand. I ask them, okay, draft me this treaty on 1 page. And this is good exercise because in current discussion, we have a lot of mentioning why we don't regulate this. I said, okay, draft me Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4, Article 5. What is the purpose of this exercise? Is to see, is it possible to do it? How it's possible to do it? I would be here careful not to focus on AI, but focus on, in your question, indigenous knowledge. Focus on the hate speech. Focus on defamation acts. Do we have regulation on that? We don't have it. And that would be my just sort of conceptual approach, that we focus on the issue itself. So Sonia, Dustin Bruce, interest of justice to everyone. How fast do you think that quantum supercomputers using AI and emerging technology will be available to the public use? Will cell phone computer be using holographic during video conferencing at a mass scale? How will this be regulated? How interesting. Tech is developing quickly. How will people regulate at such a fast pace so tech are not harmful to human psychologically and physically? Okay, I'm generally careful, Dustin, with my experience of long time being around since early days of the internet, of being too excited about latest technology, and including quantum. Let's see, it's potentially powerful technology, but it will take some time before it affects society. Yes, like with AI, we should think about extinction risk. Why not? Like we discuss climate or we discuss other risks. But we cannot be completely obsessed with that. And this is the risk with the hype. Now, if the new hype is quantum, we'll discuss just quantum, and the life will move on all other issues in other ways. Have you heard recently any serious discussion on blockchain? Here and there in the small community. 5 years ago, it was the top topic, like AI today. Therefore, I would be just careful about that, not undermining power of quantum of relevance, but putting it into context. I'm Ose from Ghana. I'm curious about prediction of AI in Africa, also the strategic focus on investment in Africa. How is it shaping democracy in Africa? Accelerating an already AI divide. That's it. Ose, it was great to see you in Riyadh. That's a very tricky issue. Now, the dominant narrative, Africa is behind. We'll have a new divide. Africa doesn't have a power, doesn't have big computing centers. That's all true. But I would be careful in the sense that African diplomacies and countries keep pushing for that to access, but don't consider that as a sort of magic formula. Africa has to preserve its own knowledge, to identify, to strengthen universities, to preserve oral knowledge, Ubuntu philosophy, other local philosophies, and to consider it as its common heritage. As we here in Europe have a Kant, Hegel, Dostoevsky, Shakespeare, Africa has a lot to offer in codified, non-codified languages. I'm a bit worried that obsession is, oh, we have need NVIDIA, more cards and more this, is basically not missing the key point, which can be done without a lot of technology. Therefore, that would be my advice. Keep pushing for the more resources, but also think what can be done locally to strengthen the system. Mark Carwell, what is Diplo's view on the impact of the new United Office with a strengthened mandate that tech envoy arising from the Global Digital Compact implementation? Mark, first, there is no Diplo view. We don't take a stance on the policy issues. I take a stand personally, but Diplo has a view that you cannot be preacher and teacher, and we are teachers. I can present my view, and my view is the following. Global Digital Compact introduced a new adrenaline into the bit sleeping digital governance space. I'm part of VERSYS community and IGF community. I'm one of the designers at the working group on internet governance. And VERSYS and VERGI have done really fantastic job in basically helping the growth of the internet. But last, let's say 5 to 10 years, there was a bit of a lack of engagement with the new processes, new dynamism, new spaces, new actors. And I think the UN Secretary General, at least based on my experience when I was on high-level group on digital governance cooperation, he needed to do something, and I think it was correct. And he put a new adrenaline among policymakers, among diplomats to do something about digital governance, AI governance, you name it and you have it. And if I have to summarize, we have very successful marathon of the VERSYS, a lot of experience, expertise, but a sprint with the high-level panel and now digital global compact, which was needed. Now in 2025, we have to see how to converge two. I think it is not good if we have parallel systems. This is again my personal opinion, but I think in the VERSYS consultation process, there is a possibility to converge two processes and make it simpler and easier, especially for small and developing countries, but not only for them, to basically follow what's going on. Jovan's view, not the Diplo's. Rajesh Pandey, it seems the white collar's work would be moving to AI and blue collar's work would be moving to robots. How would purchasing power will be distributed? Well, Rajesh, you know, discussion, universal income and other issues, but it will take some time before this movement happens. And Bologna, thank you. What specific strategy can small states adopt to mitigate the risk of AI amplifying power asymmetries and ensure that retain meaningful agency in multilateral decision making? Many things, but first see what are the priorities of these countries. Not be all over the place. Be informed what's going on. Push for AI-driven reporting from the meetings. We have Mina will share it. We have Diplo, as a small organization, very small organization, reports from international meetings. And you can have a small mission based in Geneva of 3 diplomats with the help of AI following what's going on, comparable to mission with 100 diplomats. Therefore, there are simple things, apart from the big narratives, where the small and developing countries should keep saying 2 messages. We want to be part of the process, we want to protect our interests, and 2, we won't wait for you, we will do things ourselves to strengthen our capacities in AI. Sometimes, and I'm speaking as a person who spent my life helping small and developing countries, sometimes just the narrative of not access to technology could be also excuse for not doing something that we can do ourselves. Those will be 2-pronged approach. Let's help ourselves and let's be present, use AI tools, push UN to make smart AI tools that can help us small and developing countries. Great question on the Stilie and dual use disinfo. Nick, on AI governance, maybe you have some thoughts on Ungarn of the 2 new global AI bodies where many states want them to be intergovernmental, not multi-stakeholder, and big fight is expected. Yes, Nick, you are the first great to ECU. There are 2 developments on Ungarn. One good development is that China and US tabled 2 resolutions last year. One, US was sustainable development, Chinese was on the capacity building, and they supported each other. Therefore, there is a convergence. This is why I said there was a successful year for the tech digital diplomacy. When it comes to generally inclusion and participation, there is the following thing. Any participation, multi-stakeholder participation, which makes sense, especially in the issues like AI, I mean, you need expertise, should be supported with full transparency, with capacity building of people that they can really relate their interests, and with a clear, honest, transparent communication towards developing countries. Many developing countries with whom I interact in Geneva, met them in Riyadh and other places, they basically say, listen, we don't care about your multi-stakeholder multilateral. For us, it's a simple question of necessity. We need a space where we can go. It's fine to be in Riyadh with 5,000 people, but in Riyadh, that's what I'm quoting it. One diplomat from a small country told me, I'm one of the 4,000. In Geneva, in New York, I'm one of 193. What is my point? If you want to make reasonable, what makes a lot of sense, inclusion into intergovernmental process or multi-stakeholder processes, it has to be done with utmost care. Just promoting and stating it, multi-stakeholder versus multilateral, I think it's not going to do any good to all of those who are genuinely interested to have good AI governance or internet governance and digital governance. And I'll reflect, Nick, more on that. On data governance, the working group on data at CST is a really important development. I think it could set direction of travel for further UNGA action. Agree, that's good. Also, the versus review is going to be very difficult, and it's clear that Russia and Rada are going to push to unpick key compromise, including on multi-stakeholder governance. Your thoughts on this would be welcome. Nick, I don't currently have insights. That's probably going to be one of the division lines which will happen in the reinterpretation of the verses. But essentially, it is what I see personally is the key is to read carefully verses document. It is unbelievable good document. For some reason, especially Tunis agenda and Tunis commitments, also Geneva, written in the simple style, not that long, written before this hype language, down to earth, and quite substantive. But in any discussion, everything boils down to few points. And here will be Article 72 of the Tunis agenda, and basically future role of IGF. And I think para D or para G, I cannot recall, if IGF is going to provide some outputs, including recommendations. That's going to be make or break for many small and developing countries. Countries who are for multilateral or multi-stakeholder, they have their position, they're clear, and you outline some of them. But you have that group of countries which is not ideologically concerned about multilateral, multi-stakeholder. They want simple, clear access to the governance processes and place where they can voice their concerns. That would be my sort of suggestion, how to make it more constructive. Fahim, how can the significant gap between government regulator and the rapid pace of innovation by entrepreneurs feels like, yeah, in very concrete way, Fahim, specific, concrete issue. Happy New Year, DM. 2 questions, what would be application there? Okay, you ask it already. I'm moving a bit fast. Afternoon, Benson, great to see you. How will I get universal health coverage? I don't know. Get your copy, Mina. Hi, Jovan. It's always great pleasure to hear your thoughts. I would like to have your thoughts on how can ADRI initiatives can help bridge the digital gap in countries like Afghanistan. Tech literacy remain a significant challenge. Yes, can AI help it with Afghan language? Can AI help it with local communities? Not AI for the sake of AI, but uses of AI. What is Diplo view? Mark Carvel, I'm seeing the same question. How can it be more engaging, helping shape regulation? So there is a public in the regulation, which how can civil society? Dustin, yes, civil society, academia can bring the expertise, can bring the put the governments accountable, and they can play very important role. My personal advice is to move to more concrete issues that concerns people, and be very careful about this ideological dichotomy, multi-stakeholder versus multilateral, which in my view is a fake, and it's dangerous for the real multi-stakeholder approach, because many countries, if they're forced to choose between two, especially from developing countries, they will choose what they know, which is multilateral. Therefore, I would be very to the point, practical, useful, and relevant. Bottom up, Stephanie on civil society organization, Kate project, thank you for bringing it, important. Nick, my sense in New York, multi-stakeholder government will be under sustained attack this year. Russia demanded a vote of the beginning of the adoption of the pact. They lost heavily, but they knew they would putting everyone on notice, I think. If I have any ideas of this macro stakeholder situation, that would be a great macro stakeholder association. I didn't follow, I know about the vote, and I know it was usually surprising because diplomacy is special experienced diplomacy. They don't put things on the vote if they know that they will lose. Therefore, there was some other purpose of putting it on the vote. And I don't know. Yes, New York has more multilateral atmosphere than let's say Geneva. I don't know about Vienna and other places. That's true. There is also question of professional atmosphere in the city, in the space, because culture of the policy culture also enters through windows. If you can open the windows this day. Metaphorically, you have a space, and I think there is a difference definitely between Geneva and New York in that. Mark, thank you for you're welcome. How can the IGF in Norway in June help to promote convergence of the GDC process, secure permanent IGF mandate on its proven record of success? It's up to governments to see. It's up to IGF to communicate it. It's up to making proposal beyond statements. One thing that people are increasingly tired is just the proclamation. People need concrete actions. During my time at the high-level panel, I proposed that IGF hosts multi-stakeholder help desk, where countries can come and voice their opinion, their question. I need a child safety regulation. I need to deal with AI. I need to this. I know that. Where to go? There is proverbial Kissinger. When you want to call Europe, whom to call, you call one place. And then in multi-stakeholder way, you provide assistance. That was completely diluted, moved into some bureaucratic help desks. And I think the idea is killed by basically But that for me would be something which countries will say, hey, IGF is helping me, I like it, and they would support it. Are you bullish during the, thank you, are you bullish? I'm not bullish. I don't have any opinion in it. Basically, if Bitcoin is regulated well, why not? It's basically useful technology. Well, very busy dynamics. We have few minutes more. Let me go quickly through the other points from our discussion and summarize that. There was on diplomacy, on security, human rights, economy. We went through the standards. Big issue, the question of the standardization and human rights, standardization of the parts of geopolitics, question of standards around the digital public infrastructure which India initiated during G20 presidency, which a bit slowed down now, but it is still moving on as important aspect. Mobile standards, China was actively involved in the ITU process with 6G, brain-computer interface. Again, China initiated standardization process on brain-computer interface, and that we can expect more of it next year. Question of encryption, big issue, especially in the EU, protection and access to the encryption tool, Network and Information Security Directive. I won't be going in details because we don't have a lot of time. I will share it in the updated text. Question of identity, again, a big issue, India's Aadhaar process, European digital identity wallet, and overall question of the digital identity is growing in importance. We discuss content. I won't go here on the content we discuss in the context of the 20th of January. Obviously, the latest move by Facebook Meta to follow the Trump Musk's approach to the content. That's, I think, will have far-reaching consequences. And inclusion. Inclusion, I'm afraid that inclusion will reduce. And this is what we have to be very careful, that we fight on inclusion on all sorts of levels, marginalized group, small and developing countries, professional communities, youth. Inclusion not only of having the people sitting at the IGF panels from, let's say, each community, but inclusion of the views, inclusion of different approaches. That still is missing, I would say, in overall global process. Therefore, personally, I would spend a lot of time focusing on basically checking if inclusion is advancing or if it is deteriorating in the overall process. Now, let me just give you one thing. If you want to discuss with Diplo, at our chatbot, you can ask some of your questions. What should be the future of VERSYS and GDC? I think Nick and Mark asked these questions. You can consult the whole Diplo's knowledge, and you can find on our Diplo AI trained model what is the position and what we insist on all findings. We always indicate sources to the level of the paragraph. Therefore, please consult it, discuss, and see whatever I didn't manage to answer today. You can do it here, or you can also access, if you want my personal opinion, there is a model which was developed on all my writing Zoom calls, and it is on my page, and you can here ask the same question. What is your view on VERSYS? Mina, you will send the links, and that's basically, I guess, all. We have 1 minute more. Let me go back to the questions, and here we have Nick. I answered it. Okay, here is my view on this, and of course you have all these sources on which sources our AI model basically generated this question. Therefore, you can continue. If you see a lot of hallucination, just let me know, and I'm happy to train my model further. Michael, thank you, and for quite interesting exchange. How do you see the role of spiritual and religious leader in safeguarding the life and dignity of the human being in the digital space? Thank you, Michelle, for that. This is critical. And those of you who know me, I spend quite a bit of time with religious communities trying to see how they can contribute to discussion about spirituality, about the free will, about the question of what defines us as humans in the sense of our dignity. And I think that religious communities should play much more prominent role, and we will follow up with a few initiatives where we may bring a different religious community to discuss these issues. Jan Garden, just brain computing, as it was mentioned, a lot of work happening on international standard on that. Great, grateful link. Seb, great to see you. Thank you very much for excellent work, Jovan. Thank you, Seb, for joining us. Thank you, Susonia, Consult Page. Elaine, thank you. Many thanks, Viona. Thank you, Merdita, and then Irena. Many thanks. And I would like to thank you for a very substantive discussion. You put me on I had to put a lot of effort, drink a lot of water, because your questions were excellent, to the point. And stay tuned, and tomorrow you will get my substantiated prediction for the 2025. And good luck in this complex year. I wish you personal happiness, good health, and the realization of your dreams. All the best.
Recording stopped.